Alright, so I saw a Japanese film that I didn't know too much about going into it. I didn't even watch a trailer. The only thing I knew about it was the title, what the poster looked like, and that it had close to 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. So I saw the movie Killers. No, not that film. Get that out of here. No, I saw this Killers. And let me tell you, I was not prepared for it. Just watching that intro to the film will better prepare you for what's to come throughout the film. Now, if you're a big fan of horror and you're fine with gore and all that kind of stuff, you'll probably find the intro pretty weak. But if you're not into horror and not into gory stuff, then most likely the intro might be a little too much for you but ultimately this film tries to appeal to horror fans, serial killer fans, and fans that are into art films and indie films and films that make the viewer think a little bit more. Yeah, the film starts with this guy strapping a girl to a chair, beating her to death with a hammer, and filming the entire thing. What a fun way to start a film. Killers is a Japanese film, so if you're not into foreign films or don't like films where you have to read the subtitles, then this might not be a film for you, obviously, because they speak in Japanese throughout the entire movie, except for a few scenes when the two main characters, for some reason, speak in English to each other. They're Japanese, both of them, but they speak English whenever they talk to each other. Now, I don't know if there's a dubbed version or not of this film. The version I saw was subtitles, but if there's a dubbed version, then maybe you'll enjoy that. Just as the title would suggest, it's about two killers. Now, both killers are completely different from one another. One of them is the main guy that we saw in the intro, and he is this serial killer that preys on women, stalks them out at night, brings them to his place to have sex with them, and then kill them and make snuff videos out of it. What a fun little hobby. Now, the other killer in this film is completely different. And he's this average, normal guy who's really down on his luck. He's lost his job because he was investigating a very corrupt businessman, pretty much mobster, that really he had no evidence of. And because he had no evidence, he, lost his job. He's also losing his marriage and possibly losing his child. And of course, one night, these taxi drivers try to mug and rape him. But he manages to fend them off, kills them, tapes the whole thing because he's just so in awe of it, and puts it on the same site where the guy who creates his snuff videos puts them on. And of course, that's how they meet. And so, like I said, this normal guy killer is going down this path of revenge and taking out the people that harmed him. And so, of course, we get two different types of killers that ultimately converge into one story by the end of it. Now, I have to say, this film was really good. It was pretty damn amazing, actually, for the most part. This is a thriller. It is a horror movie and a slasher film and serial killer stuff, but it's filmed in a way that feels like it belongs with art films. The cinematography is great. The acting is overall amazing. There's enough subtlety in the film where it doesn't spoon feed you the entire way through. And I think the last 30 minutes of the film is probably the best part and the most unique part of this whole story. But with that in mind, there are a few flaws in it that don't make it as amazing of a film as it probably should be. For one, I said that there is a lot of great acting in this film. There is a lot of subtle moments, a lot of great performances, but at the same time, there are some moments where it gets a little too over the top and almost comical. So that's a little thing. Another thing is the gore might not be up to par to most horror film fanatics. In fact, a lot of the moments towards the beginning, you don't actually get to see the death. It's one of those things where it turns away, so you don't really see the brutal moment, even though it's a rated R film. But at that same time, I see what they're going for, because it doesn't feel like a cop-out. It doesn't feel like one of those PG-13 movies that was meant to be R, but then they cut certain things out of it so they can make it PG-13. It didn't feel like that type of cop-out. Instead, it felt like one of those things where it lets your imagination run wild, because ultimately you can probably imagine something more horrific than what can be shown on the screen. And at the same time, because the deaths towards the beginning of the film are a little underwhelming, it only makes the deaths at the end more memorable and more amazing when you actually do see the blood and this one guy get his throat stabbed and all these crazy things that it's just amazing. It just makes those scenes way better when it's very subtle at the beginning. And I think the main issue, the only reason why it's very hard for me to score this film, is the last scene. Well, towards the last scene was probably one of the cheesiest and almost lame moments in the entire film. Now, I had said the last 30 minutes of the film is absolutely amazing and unique and awesome. But there's this one section in this 30 minutes towards the very end that gets a little too cheesy, almost laughable, and very cheap. Now, I don't want to spoil it because it is at the end of the film, but just if you're going to watch the film, just so you know what to look for the slow motion that happens at the very end of the film. Everything that happens in slow-mo all the way to almost the last cut is done very cheaply and very cheesily, to the point where I almost felt like laughing, which I probably shouldn't have. But then once that slow-mo is done and it gets to the last moments of the entire movie, I felt it got back to, this is amazing again. So, like I said, this is hard for me to choose because there's a lot of great moments that are 4.5 star worthy. There's a lot of moments that are 4-star worthy. But there's some moments that are just plain bad or almost unintentionally comical. So for me, I'm going to have to give Killers 3.5 stars. I highly recommend it. It is a very unique experience. There is things that have been done before, but the way it's done in this film feels like it's unique and amazing. And I can understand why people will love it, and I can understand why people will hate it. It's pretty much an art film that has to do with serial killers. So have you seen Killers? What did you think about it? If you didn't, what is your favorite Japanese movie? How about that? What's your favorite Japanese foreign film? As always, this was Bruce Gifford, and this was Just My Opinion.